Okay, so I've got 3 books that I would like to suggest to the book club. The first one is quite a short one. It's called Branded. It's about a teenager who he's never really been good with girlfriends, and he tries getting a load of branded clothes just so he can look cool, and the girl he likes has a go at him, and it turns out he actually likes his best friend, and they get together, and that's the end. That's that one in like a minute. It's a pretty good book. I recommend it. It's rather short, so be easy to read. It took me about like 3 days to read it because I'm a slow reader. Next one is this one, the Mephisto Club. It's way longer, but it's a good book. The Mephisto Club, I suggest it. It's about a killer a killer. That's the best way to start off. It's about a killer who's shot, how to put it, he's a bit weird, and he chops people up and draws Satanist signs. I found one earlier. So, see if I can find it. He chops people up and draws Satanist signs, and so far they know that, where I've got to because I haven't read it all, they know that he's chopped up 2 people and killed one of the police officers. Here's one of the Satanist signs he draws. Oh god. There we go. Okay, there's a Satanist sign. And so he draws Satanist signs and kills people. A bit weird. But yeah, that's what he does. What else? Also, it sort of veers off into other people's views. Like, there's a diary of a little boy, there's a girl running away from something weird, and there's 3 views of the cops. I think there's 3 of them, something like that. And yeah, that's all I know about it. And the next one is Darren Shan, Vampire Blood Trilogy, or I'm suggesting just one of them. This is 3 of the books in one, so it's rather long, but I've read this one, or Cam's now reading it. Let's see. That's the size of one of the books. So yeah, it's about these 2. It's mainly 4 kids, but there's 2 main kids. One of them's called Darren Shan, the other one's called Steve something or other. I don't remember his name. And one of their friends finds he doesn't find it. His brother got drunk and brought home a poster for this thing called Cirque du Freak, and they think, oh, this looks cool, we should go to it. So they decide to go to it, and they learn before going to it that it's a freak show, hence Cirque du Freak. And they find out that only 2 people can go to it. At one poster means you can only pay for tickets for 2 people. And then they go to it, see a load of freak shows like Mr. Crepsley and his amazing performing spider, who's a spider that performs, obviously. It's a really poisonous spider. Darren Shan likes spiders, I forgot to mention that, and Steve likes horror books. Anyway, Evra, the snake boy, who is basically a snake boy. He has scales all over him, like snake scales, and his snake. And hands, he is faster than any sprinter on his hands. What else? The bearded lady, I forget her name, but she can grow a beard, as is general in a circus. And yeah, that's all the acts I can remember, really. The Wolf Man, he's important there. Anyway, yeah, so after the show, Steve asks Darren to go back to his house whilst Steve hangs around a bit because he wants to ask someone a question. and Darren decides that he would rather spy on his friend than go home. So he spies on his friend and goes up to this balcony and sees Steve talking to one of the performers, Mr. Crepsley, and Steve reveals that Mr. Crepsley is a vampire. And then he's a vampire, and Steve wants to become a vampire, so he asks Mr. Crepsley to turn him into a vampire, but Mr. Crepsley doesn't, because Steve has bad blood, which, if you have bad blood, you're not allowed to be a vampire, apparently. So yeah, and then they go to they go back home, and Darren runs back to his house, and Steve goes back to his house, and then the next school day that they have, Steve is annoyed at Darren, and then Darren decides that he'd like the spider from the circus, and decides to steal the spider from Mr. Crepsley the vampire. So Darren's stolen the spider, and he has fed it and learned how to make it perform with a flute, because that's how they control the spider. So he learns how to control it, and then he decides that he'd show Steve. So he's showing Steve his performing. He's letting the spider crawl all over Steve, and then the spider's on his ear, I think, and his sister busts in. They both scream. The spider bites Steve. Darren gets it back in the cage and has a go at his sister. The spider's venom can, the first shot can paralyze you, the second shot can kill you. So Steve is paralyzed. So Darren decides to take Steve to hospital, and they can't do anything for him. So Darren decides to go to see Mr. Crepsley, and Mr. Crepsley says that he'll only give Darren the cure if Darren becomes a half vampire or a vampire assistant. So Darren agrees. They go heal his friend, and then because Darren's now a half vampire, he can still go out on day because he's only half a vampire, but he sucks the blood of one of his friends, and he also almost sucks the blood of his sister. So he decides to go see Mr. Crepsley and run away. So they fake Darren's death. He's in a coffin for a few days, and then Mr. Crepsley digs him out, and they run away. And Steve, before they run away, vows that he would become a vampire hunter. So that's the very, very long synopsis for a very, very short book. So I do suggest these books. They're like my favourite books ever. Here's Branded, The Mephisto Club, and Darren Shan. Okay, so that's all the books I wanted to show you, unless you want to see a graphic novel. But yeah, so yeah, that's it. That's all I've suggested. Thanks and bye.